All right. Jereme, thank you so much for joining. So Jereme is the managing director at Good Dog Strategies. He has spent the last decade as an organizer, fundraiser, strategist, and campaigner for candidates and causes. So he brings 10 years of experience in communications and social impact to nonprofits, helping them leverage digital communications for impact. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and turn it over to Jereme to take it away. So sorry, give me one moment. And all right, it's all you, Jereme.
All right.
Ooh, I'm gonna close out this poll. How are you doing today, Jereme?
I am having technical issues, so.
Oh no.
Oh, it's Tuesday.
Yes, it is Tuesday.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, no worries.
There we go.
All right, can you guys hear me okay? Just want to make sure everything is good. Yes, okay, so Kate can hear me. That's a good thing. And then Jereme is back. Very excited.
Right. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Great.
Thank you so much for joining today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I think you kicked off the summit last year too, right? Or you were pretty early in the day.
I was probably pretty early in the day. I'm a morning person, so
Yeah.
generally speaking. You can see my slides?
Yes, yeah. I think you're all set to go whenever you're ready.
All right, perfect. So hello, everybody. I originally called this 10 practical ways to get more done in less time. And because I've never done this presentation before, I just kept adding more stuff and then realized that maybe this wasn't actually going to be a tally of 10 things. So we're going to call it 10-ish practical ways to get more done in less time, because there are some things that revolve around some themes or some tips that are around specific types of tools that don't necessarily require you to keep that score. But if you're unhappy and you want 10, stop listening after you count for 10. So here we go. So as Candace mentioned, my name is Jereme. I'm the Managing Director of Good Dog Strategies, which helps good people, good organizations, and great causes be smart about their communications. I've been working as a digital strategist for a little more than 10 years in the social sector, and most recently at the Rockefeller Foundation, where I was also a program officer on their data and technology portfolio. So that's to say that I have spent a lot of time thinking about technology, how we use it to reach people, and how we use it to make our lives a bit better. I'm also going to turn off my video so we focus on the slides. There we go. So Good Dog Strategies is a comms firm that works primarily with foundations and nonprofits. We work on digital strategy, email marketing, social and paid media, and other digital comms related projects. A lot of what we're going to talk about today are the techniques, tools, and approaches that we use to manage our own work as well as the client work and projects. And you can learn more about Good Dog by visiting our website, gooddogstrategies.com. So first I'm going to say a couple of housekeeping things. I might talk a little bit fast, so Candace, feel free to interrupt me if I go a little bit too quickly for people. I'm also going to be talking a lot about tools and resources that are available. I'll link them where I can, but keep in mind that I will also have a slide at the very end that recaps all of those tools and links to where you can access them. So don't worry if you don't capture everything right at the moment. There will be a slide at the end with links to all of the tools that I'm talking about. Okay, so first, when you're working alone or part of a small team, tasks, big and small, can really start to mount up. Starting the week with a manageable laundry list of to-dos and priority projects are quickly overtaken by one-off requests, fire drills, sudden changes of plans, and it happens to all of us, right? It happens to each and every one of us so much that there's an entire field dedicated to productivity and project management, apps that promise to streamline your life and give you back your free time. And when you're a nonprofiteer, or again, you're just part of a small team like I am, there's often no one else to tap into to help you tackle that growing list of tasks. Your colleagues are often just as busy as you are. And there's no magic formula, there's no app, there's no secret to streamlining your workday. Trust me, I've tried pretty much all of it. But what I found is that combinations of different approaches and different tools can reduce the number of small things that take bites out of your day. So today we'll walk through some of those tools and techniques that I've found that actually do help salvage some of my time out of my day and still get more work done. Some of these might require some upfront time investment. So, nothing is available for free here. But if you spend a little time upfront, you'll get a little bit more time back on the back end. Other tools might be free at one level and have a paid component at the end, but I assure you they're all nonprofit approved because they either have a nonprofit discount or they're minimal in cost. So let's dive in. So the first thing you want to do, identify where your time's actually going so you can figure out how to save yourself time. Sometimes that answer can seem obvious. You think you know where you're spending your time, or maybe you think your calendar tells that story, but actually investing a few minutes each day to really look at how you're spending your time might surprise you. And it's simple to get started. What you need are your to-do list, your calendar, and a timer, which can be virtual or analog depending on your preference. First, use your to-do list to write down all the things you need to get done this week, big and small. I personally use Todoist because it syncs with all my devices, makes it easy to add lots of details and even files to tasks, and it integrates with my timer of choice, which is Toggle. We'll talk more about both of these later. Next, use your timer every time you start working on one of the items on your to-do list. If you start working on something else, start the clock and write down what that item is. I found it best to categorize your timed tasks in buckets like email, social media, reporting, meetings, blog posts, things like that. That way, when you look back at your time, you can see how much time you're dedicating to email as a whole, not just sending one email in particular. If you use this procedure throughout the week, then you can carve out 30 minutes or so on, let's say, Friday or Saturday morning just to go over what you've timed for the week and ask yourself a bunch of questions. Ask yourself, what are you spending the bulk of your time on? How does that time mesh with how you think you're spending your time? Are there specific times of day where you're most productive? Are there specific times of day where you're least productive? I mentioned before, I'm a morning person, so my most productive time of the day is in the morning. How many of your high priority items from your to-do list fit within the time you spent working this week? And what new things or activities did you add throughout the week? How did that impact your time? You'll definitely start to learn something about your schedule in just the first week, but you should try to keep this practice up for as long as you can. I've been doing it for months or years at this point. You'll always learn something new as the weeks go by, and you should hopefully start seeing the fruits of your labor too from making some very conscious choices about how you divvy up your time. Now that you have a sense of where your time is going and what you're doing, you can start to allocate your week. For example, if you realize the bulk of your new work hits your inbox on Tuesdays, you should block off as much of Monday as possible so you can focus on your to-do list. Or if you've learned that you're most productive in the morning, like me, try to block your calendar for the first couple hours you're in the office to focus on the day's top priorities. Don't even check your email when you're in that deep work mode. Just focus on what you're working on for 30 to 45 minutes, an hour, whatever works best for you. I won't even take meetings usually for the first 2 or 3 hours of the day because I want to have that time to tackle my high priority items on my to-do list. Next, look for things that you can let go of. Are there meetings that are taking longer than they should, or tasks that could be accomplished another way, like by status email at the beginning or end of the week instead of a 1-hour staff meeting where everybody goes through kind of the laundry list of what they're working on or what the week's tasks ahead are. Whatever insights you discover, that's how you know how your week takes shape and will take shape over time. So you can start figuring out the best places to spend your time, squeeze out the things that have the least value, and focus on the things that have the most impact. So now to the tools that I mentioned earlier, Toggle and Todoist. This is how they help continue to manage my time. As mentioned before, Todoist is a task management tool that helps you organize your to-dos. You can use a variety of tools here, including Asana, Trello, Google Tasks, or even Apple's native to-do list app if you're a Mac user. Use whatever works best for you in creating and managing your to-do list. A few reasons I switched to Todoist from both Trello and Asana are easy prioritization features, so my high priority items can jump to the top of my list, project and tag assignment, so that I can keep track of the types of things that I'm working on and the projects or clients that they belong to, and its integration with other tools I use, like Toggle, my time tracking tool, Gmail, or Google Drive. Whenever I receive an email with an action item, I immediately add it to Todoist via the handy dandy Gmail add-on. I tag the task, assign it to a project, and then give it a priority, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and a due date. Doing this helps me clear my inbox, my email inbox, as I no longer need all that email anymore. The task has a link to the message embedded in it. So if I need to, I can quickly jump back to the email message to get more context. But in the meantime, I've moved the work out of my email inbox and into a platform where the work itself gets done. Inside of Todoist, I can then move my to-dos around by date and priority so that I don't have too much going on any one given day, or I can manage my time against a larger deadline. So if I have a bunch of small tasks, I can put them all in one area of the day. And if I have a big task, I might try to reduce my workload for that Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday so I can focus on that and clear out the smaller ones later on. This also helps you get a sense of when you're actually accomplishing the high priority items on your list versus the really small things that make us feel like we're working a lot, but aren't actually contributing a lot to our higher priorities. So from here, I can also track my time by clicking the toggle button next to my to-do items in my Todoist app. And that helps continue to track my time against those tasks. And you can see in this slide here, this is a screenshot of Toggle and the way it helps you both track your time, as you can see from the one frame on the right, and then presents that time back to you in a report on the left. It helps me to visualize exactly where my time is going, what tasks I'm spending them on. And if I can make sure that I'm still on track for the projects that I'm supposed to be working on and not wasting too much time on other things. If I am, I can proactively schedule the rest of my week so that I have time available to complete, say, a presentation on a Tuesday morning without worrying that I'm falling behind on something else. So here's how I do that. So there are two approaches that I typically default to. One is when looking at my Todoist list, I pull out my calendar and I use these two simple methods, task batching and time blocking. So imagine that you're baking cookies. As you put together the recipe and slide the dough into the oven, how many cookies are on the sheet? It's definitely more than one, right? Because that would be a big waste of time to just make one cookie. We do the same thing for most household tasks and other tasks in our life. You don't just wash one plate, go sit down and do something else, right? You do everything in clusters. If you have a lot of similar tasks to get done, group them together. This is called task batching. So instead of jumping from one project to another, sort the components of your work together and handle them in one chunk of time. For example, as I mentioned before, Good Dog Strategies manages a lot of different paid media campaigns for clients. So in my to-do list, I put all of the Twitter ads together, all of the Facebook ads together, and all the Google and LinkedIn ads together. Then as I move through the day, instead of jumping between platforms and clients and back again, I launch all of the Twitter ads at the same time, all of the Facebook ads at the same time, and all of the Google ads at the same time. It might seem a bit arbitrary in how you arrange your time, but in batching these tasks together, I'm avoiding context shifting. Context shifting or switching from one activity to a different one and then back again is mentally taxing. No matter how good you think you are at multitasking, it's not something our brains can handle very much for very long. So reducing that frequent jump can make you more productive simply because your brain has the chance to focus on one type of activity for a longer period of time. It's like creating a mental assembly line for your day, removing the friction from changing tools or jobs as you work. So the next technique you can implement by itself or in parallel with task batching is called time blocking. Time blocking literally means blocking out time on your calendar to get your work done. It sounds simple, but because it is. If you live by the motto, what gets scheduled gets done, it can help you protect your time from things like meetings or phone calls or other distractions that pop up so you can focus on your work. So you can see that in the image here. It also has the added benefit of providing structure to your time. Work has a tendency to take up as much time as you'll allow it. So if you only schedule yourself 2 hours to finish a report, you're more likely to only take 2 hours to complete the report versus trying to squeeze in a few minutes at random times throughout the week. How I usually approach time blocking, I kind of think of this as two ways. Some people prefer to time block specific tasks, while the visual here is kind of a general sense of time blocking. I like to look at it by just doing like a general block of tasks like this person's kind of pointed to here. And then maybe in the calendar description, I'll list out the ones that I want to get done. But more often than not, I'll put down, like task lists for an hour and a half. And then that's my cue to open up my to-do list app and to look through and say, which are the highest priority items right now because they're ordered by priority. And then I start ticking them off within that time frame. And then when that time is done, I can switch on to something else. Another way that both of these techniques are really helpful too is in managing the two biggest time sucks in our weeks, meetings and emails. As mentioned earlier, if after reviewing your week, you find that you're most productive in the morning, do like I do, block off your morning to get your high priority tasks done. If you block off your calendar, nobody can schedule a meeting on top of this time unless you specifically let them. So if you can protect that time, you should. Because if that's when your most productive time is, you shouldn't just give yourself that off that says, okay, well, I'll do this tomorrow. I've also found time blocking to be incredibly useful in handling email because it's easy to let email derail your time working. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I put my computer on Do Not Disturb while I'm working during this time block. And this lets me focus without having to worry about switching gears or backburnering something that I need to get done because an email came in. Then I schedule time on my calendar for checking or returning emails, 15 or 30-minute blocks a few times a day. Because email was never meant to be a real-time communications channel. Despite the urgency we all feel to respond when we see a new one come in, you should relieve yourself of that feeling by closing your email tab while you're focusing and then reopen when you're done or during the designated time throughout the day. Most of the time, again, you just need that 15 to 30-minute window around mid-morning, early afternoon, and then again towards the end of the day. And if you're worried that you missed something urgent, just advise your colleagues that email will not receive an urgent reply. If you need something, try calling your cell phone if it's super important and cannot wait. Otherwise, they should expect to hear from you within an hour or two. I know this is probably the biggest cultural shift because, again, we do think of email as that urgent tool, but it's probably more important to you and your organization that you have time to focus on your work. And we're not talking about taking 8-hour chunks of time to not respond to email. Being able to communicate to your colleagues and say, well, from 9 to 10:30 in the morning, I'm focused on XYZ. You should feel free to email me and I'll respond to you after 10:30. Or if it's super urgent, in a time where there's no COVID-19, come knock on my door. Time of COVID-19, shoot me a message through my phone or whatever that you would allow to come through in notifications. But otherwise, if somebody's emailing you, it can wait an hour and a half. So speaking of email, let's talk about some ways to spend less time in there as well. So I love email. I love email so much, I spend a lot of time thinking about how we torture it less. And that's really the big issue with our inboxes. We demand too much of them. So they bloat, they get disorganized, they get shoehorned into uses they were never meant for. And the more features Google and Microsoft and all the other email providers and apps give us, the less useful email becomes, because without spending a significant amount of time customizing those things to your liking, they're not super useful. They're just extra features. But not all hope is lost. There's still a few really simple tools and approaches that you can do to make your email life and your colleagues' email lives a little easier. The first are email filters and labels. This is a really easy way to organize and get the most out of your inbox. It's by taking advantage of your email client's filters, labels, and folders. If you're using Gmail or Outlook, you have some standard options to changing how your inbox appears, which automatically sorts things like promotions or receipts into a separate inbox from your emails from coworkers or family members. On Outlook, it's focused or other. Gmail has, 7 different ways you can customize that as well. But you can go one step further by setting up new labels or folders and then creating rules that sort your emails automatically into them. So for example, my business email is in G Suite. So I have filters and rules set up that automatically tag emails from different clients when they come in. The color and tag let my brain know after a quick scan of my inbox which clients are reaching out, or if it's a request via like my website contact form, which has a label just called incoming. I have similar rules set up for things like newsletters and receipts so that I can read them, add them to my to-do list app, and then archive them. Later on, if I need to retrieve some information from one of those emails, say something from a client, instead of searching my entire inbox, I can go to the relevant tag or folder in my inbox and search directly from there. And because that list of emails that I'm searching within is significantly smaller than if you're searching all messages from your inbox, which often include archive, trash, things you haven't looked at yet, I can find what I'm looking for much more quickly. And again, I use this system in conjunction with a to-do list app, so I have a routine that I keep my inboxes, personal and professional, to 10 or fewer emails total at any given time. Often I head into the weekend with inbox 0 left in my inbox because of this approach. The next thing you can do with your email is templates or formatting or visual cues. I often find myself writing similar emails over and over again, from introductions to scheduling meetings to responding to questions. And I used to write and rewrite these every single time, thinking I needed to personalize pieces of it, so a template didn't make sense. But when I started looking in my sent folder for previous emails to copy and paste bits of information, I realized I was just very wrong. And then I can actually save parts of my replies as email templates to my G Suite account. So now when I need to send an email with routine content, I can jump to my three-dot menu and choose from several templates that I've saved. Once it pre-populates the box with what I need, I'm free to customize the rest of the message as I need to without having to take the few extra minutes rewriting something I might have sent a dozen times before. Then again, I might be using my Gmail or G Suite accounts as the examples here, but this is also something that exists within Outlook as well. So these templates can also be really useful for other types of communications as well. Say, for example, you are leading a fundraising team and you have templates for your mass email communications, the things that you send through MailChimp or Vertical Response or Constant Contact or any of the others, but maybe not really for your one-on-one communications, or maybe for your mass appeals. You can use a template to help make writing your appeals easier. For those types of templates, you don't need to have the copy explicitly written. You just need to provide the framework. In the first paragraph, use 2 or 3 sentences where you tell the person, the copywriter, this is where you frame the problem. The last sentence is our call to action, which is always in bold. We have a middle paragraph that's always 2 sentences, another call to action that's in bold, and then a third paragraph that reframes the issue, how they get involved, call to action in bold. Providing somebody that template to your copywriters, whether they're consultants or they're new people, or even they're just somebody who's already on your team, it provides them a framework that makes writing that much easier. And it also makes your life easier because if you're the head of development or you're the lead copywriter, you're going to have fewer rounds of edits to make because the person knows what you're expecting from the format and the style of the communication that they're writing. There's another template that we all use and to varying degrees successfully. And this one's really easy to overlook. Anybody with a personal or professional signature tends to include the same type of information. I'm talking about your email signature. Sometimes that information is useful. Other times it's creative or even hopeful, like when somebody includes a quote. And your signature can do all of those things, but it's also an opportunity to provide your email recipient some useful information. So most modern operating systems scan your email and offer to save relevant information to your contact cards. If you have an iPhone, you've likely seen these as what are called Siri suggestions. And if you're a Google user, you'll notice these in the suggestions tab of your Google contacts. This is Apple or Google scanning your emails and surfacing contact-related information that it offers to automatically add to your contacts app. And this is a great opportunity to help your contacts keep your information up to date in their address books, which means that your emails won't go to their spam filter. And now that more and more apps are taking this information to heart, they're also adding it to the call log. So if you're trying to call a major donor, for example, even if they haven't added you explicitly to their contacts card from their iPhone, if Siri recognizes your name and number, when you go to make that phone call, your number won't be unknown or just a dial. It'll say, most likely so-and-so from what organization. So you want to be intentional with the formatting and the information that you include in your email signature. Avoid using images with information aside from your organization's logo, and ditch the stuff that doesn't really matter, like the fax number if it's not something that's important for them to have. Or unless you need to help remembering it yourself, you probably don't need to give your fax number to any of your contacts. Also, if you use a calendar scheduling service, it's also a great place to put your meeting link. We'll talk a little bit about this in a few slides ahead. If anybody wants to schedule time with you, they'll know exactly where to go without having to ask you repeatedly to schedule that same meeting. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, or again, we'll cover that shortly. You also want to take advantage of formatting and visual cues. It's a really low-tech trick to make your email work better just visually. We've all received those scroll-happy emails that make our eyes roll back in our heads because you're trying to flip so fast through the entire message on the phone, right? If you have a lawyer in the family, you probably know what I'm talking about. Lawyers love long emails. It's just a fact. Anyway, if you can't keep your emails succinct, use the next best option by using different styles like bold, italic, underline, and formatting your emails just slightly differently. So for example, we all know that when you send an email, everybody in the to line is expected to digest your email and then act on some piece of it, maybe even reply. Well, the people on the BC line are there as just an FYI. But to make sure that everyone's on the same page in terms of who needs to reply or pay specific attention, in the body of your email, bold the names of the person next to the section that you're calling out and underline the action you need them to take. So be explicit, even if you just need to say, Brad, please respond to confirm you've read this. This makes scanning the email easier for people who need to respond and more likely that they'll respond without needing a follow-up. And if you write a really lengthy email, because we all have, it happens, include a TLDR, too long, didn't read section at the top, which just has 1 or 3 bullet points, very short and succinct, that summarizes why you're writing and what the next steps are, or maybe who should pay specific attention, especially if it's one of those big email lists. The last thing is get your work out of your inbox. One of the reasons why email takes so much abuse is because it wasn't designed for what we actually use it for. There have been some valiant attempts to rethink it, from Google's now shuttered inbox project to Hey from the makers of Basecamp. But until someone else gets it right, one of the best ways to save your inbox is by getting the work out of it. So as I mentioned earlier, this is why I use Todoist. Trello, Asana, a whole bunch of other software do the same thing. You can use them to export your email and create a to-do from that email. Then if you need to respond, you can respond to the person, but more likely if you don't have to, just turn it into a do, get it out of your inbox, and now it's on your to-do list and not clogging up your inbox for new email. Another way I've done this is by taking advantage of Google Docs. So onboarding new clients often requires a very similar setup step that can make for a very lengthy email with instructions. And when clients receive an email like that, they often start adding other people to the CC to act on portions of the onboarding. Then there may be questions and back and forth that ensues based on that. So all this is being done in email, which means that both the client and I would spend our time responding to things and then reminding the other of questions or actions that are still open. So once I moved off into Google Docs, I can freely add anyone from the client's team to the doc, assign tasks right in the document, address questions or comments, and everyone can work at their own speed. Nobody gets a flood of messages and loses track of what's left to do or why it's being done. And this process really takes a bite out of the time required to get projects set up and off on the right foot. I use Google Docs, as I mentioned. You can also do this with Word 365 or another shared document platform like OpenOffice, for example. Just a central place where somebody can access it online and you can work on it together. So now let's shift gears to talk a little bit about timing, because timing is everything. So the first and easiest thing you can do here is schedule your emails. Whether you're using the task batching or time blocking approaches for your email or just handling it as you go, scheduling emails can be both a strategic tool and an act of mercy. First, using Gmail or Outlook's schedule send feature enables you to provide colleagues information when it's most useful. For example, say that you're planning your weekly meeting over Zoom. It's always nice to see the meeting agenda in the calendar invite, but people often don't look back at their calendars for that information. They just get the notification, they go to the meeting, and then they're there. So what you do is cut and paste your agenda or whatever documents you want to discuss in the email, and then schedule that email to hit their inboxes 15 minutes prior to your meeting start. This serves as an easy reminder about what you plan to discuss in the meeting, and it makes it very easy for your colleagues to pull up the details on their phones or computers without having to search through the annals of their inbox. Second, scheduling your email can be an act of mercy because people tend to check their email all of the time. And we each get avalanches of email before and after work, and obviously during work. So if you're one of those people who reads and writes their emails at the end of the day or after the kids go to bed, don't send non-urgent replies back right away. Use the schedule later feature to send your email first thing in the morning, or a little before first thing in the morning if you're worried about it. Now your colleagues who might not be working late aren't reading and responding to email when they should be spending quality time with their families or practicing a hobby or doing whatever non-work related thing. Plus, this has the added bonus for you of keeping your inbox cleaner through the evening, so you have time for those things, and putting your email at the top of your colleague's inbox the next morning when their thinking is fresh and they might respond to you right away. Automate your meeting scheduling. Don't spend hours trying to find a time that works for everybody. Tools like X.AI, Doodle, Calendly, and even Microsoft's Cortana are capable of handling scheduling for you. They usually offer relief in 2 forms. First, a calendar link where people can input their options or book one-on-one times directly. It's about as easy as it sounds. When you share the link with an internal or external guest, they receive an option that works for you or both directly on a page as you're seeing on the screen. Once they select a time from your calendar, a meeting invite link is sent out to both of you with dial information or location details included. Or you can opt to put a TBD in there and fill it in later. But for now, your meeting is on the books and you no longer have to engage in back and forth schedule ping pong to find a time. This is really helpful too if you're doing the time blocking and task batching techniques where you don't want to look at your email constantly. Take the email scheduling out of your inbox and let it kind of get done on the sides, and you can just focus on what matters. The second mechanism you can use with these tools, specifically X.AI, is a very basic AI that can work with your contacts on your behalf, even follow up with them to find time if they don't respond to an initial meeting. Often X.AI, which is the tool that I use, is just a calendar link, but it does have that kind of AIE component, and it will send a meeting reminder to somebody if they haven't responded. It will prompt them to pick a location if there's not one there. It'll prompt you to select a location. So having that kind of extra can sometimes be really useful versus just sending out a Calendly and a doodle. I started using X.AI about 6 years ago. They do offer a free version. I've upgraded to the premium, which has a few more bells and whistles, but the free version is actually really robust. So I definitely recommend checking that out. If not, like I said, check out Calendly, Doodle, or Microsoft also has a built-in solution. Next, remember when things used to be Company X compatible? If you had a PC, you knew it wouldn't work with a Mac. Technology's come a long way, and now you don't have to do everything on a single platform or via the same service. Tools like IFT, If This Then That, and Zapier help you connect all of your different apps and services in new ways. For example, I use an IFT recipe for my website contact form. When someone submits a question, I get a push notification on my phone and a Google spreadsheet captures the person's details. Or when I'm on a video call or presenting on a webinar, I just ask Google to tell my Wi-Fi router to prioritize my computer on our home network to avoid latency and buffering, and sorry about that to my wife. Or when I save an article to Pocket with a specific tag, that article title, description, and link are then sorted into a spreadsheet to make it easier for me to add to social media later on, so I don't have to do it right on the fly. Some people use these tools to get a reminder to carry an umbrella, but you could also use them to help manage manual tasks. Say you're hosting an event with a volunteer sign up. You can create your volunteer sign up form on Google Forms. And every time someone signs up, have their name and email address automatically added to your email service provider with a volunteer tag appended to them. Or if your organization is running Facebook lead gen ads, a Facebook ad product that helps you build your email list directly from Facebook, you'd normally have to download a spreadsheet of signups from your Facebook page and then upload them later on to your ESP or your CRM, which takes a few minutes of your time. It doesn't have to be super long, but it does take time. Or you might want to have your signups receive a welcome email shortly after they sign up rather than wait for your weekly upload. You can use a Zapier Zap to automatically add people's information to CRM as they come in. And that automates that process so you don't have to worry about it as anymore. And there are also useful recipes on IFT or Zaps, on IFT or Zapier, those are called Zaps, that do things like automatically add blog posts from your blog or from organizations you follow to a Slack channel, to a spreadsheet, a read it later service. This can be remarkably useful in cutting down the amount of time you spend on finding content to read, add to your newsletter, or share on social media. All these examples and those listed here can save you quite a bit of time over the long run. Plus, both platforms have free versions that offer pretty robust service and an affordable premium tier if you need something more, specifically Zapier, which is much more powerful than IFT. If you aren't sure how to get started, both platforms have extensive templates and popular connections, which they'll recommend to you when you sign up. Just tell them which services you want to connect, and it'll recommend popular connections. So it makes sign up incredibly easy, so you don't have to be super techie to figure it out. Next is social media. I often hear people say social media is incredibly time consuming. You have to find things to share, make them in-house, add them to all those networks, monitor their replies, respond, cycle repeats. It's never ending. And that's all true. And there are plenty of tools and platforms promising to end all the headache that social media brings in terms of time and management. But at the end of the day, it's still going to be time consuming. So you can set up some processes and use some tools to streamline those things to help you. You'll still have to spend some time, but they can help cut back on that time. So first, as I mentioned before, using IFT or Zapier, you can easily create spreadsheets that capture articles that you want to share later. Those could be blog posts that you have on your website or from partners. They could be articles that you're reading, tweets or Facebook posts that are being shared, other things you'd like to share week to week. I do this to curate third-party content from around the internet for myself, as well as some other clients whose social media I help manage. Whenever I read an article that'd be great to share later on their social media, I add a tag to it in my Pocket account, which is a read it later service. And then that automatically gets added to a spreadsheet. And so when I'm looking at social media content later on, I open that spreadsheet and there's a title, a description of what the article is, a link, and when it was created. And so then when I want to schedule my content for the week, I can just grab those things, dump them into my social media dashboard, and off I go. I've also found this type of pull really useful when running an event or a promotion around a specific hashtag, because you can set up a recipe that adds tweets and posts that are used for a hashtag to a spreadsheet automatically for you. So if you jump back to this slide, my top top IFT recipe here, we were hosting an event. Anybody who used feeding 5000 NYC, they were added to a spreadsheet. So I'd be able to see who was tweeting, what they said, and at what time they said it. Makes it super easy then for me to, if it's an influencer, for example, I can jump back to their tweet and engage with them or provide them additional content or retweet or share whatever they said. It's just easier than having to comb through everything on Twitter and the way Twitter wants to put everything together. Finally, one of the other benefits you have, actually second to finally, apologies. You know already to use a dashboard. Most people are using Hootsuite Buffer or Crowdfire. Each of them has a free tier and an affordable premium tier if you're interested. One of the benefits, obviously, is they allow you to schedule content ahead of time. But what most people don't know is they also allow you to bulk schedule ahead of time. So to my point earlier about creating that spreadsheet of content, once you have that spreadsheet, you can use that and bulk schedule a bunch of posts at once, which means you could share that spreadsheet with other teams, have them provide input on something they want to share. You can start generating stuff for a campaign where you have to schedule 10 tweets or 10 Facebook posts over the course of a month. And then you can just add those to the spreadsheet, upload it to the platform, and it'll schedule them all for you. It takes a lot less time than having to go through one by one, posting the tweet, the hashtag, the link, et cetera. And even though you can schedule again on Hootsuite or Buffer manually, it's just much easier to use the bulk scheduling option, which is actually pretty prevalent. If you go to their scheduling section, you'll see bulk schedule. Finally, one of the main benefits of social media is that you can add your voice to existing conversations. So as you can see on my slide here, this is a tool called Right Tag. Right Tag allows you to go and test out your hashtags before you use them. So it'll let you know as hopefully this GIF is playing for you, which tags are being overused, so your conversation will be buried, which ones are gonna be used right now, and which ones will be seen later, that kind of thing. And you can use it to just search for tags, or you could install the Chrome extension and it'll automatically check your content for it as you're putting it into your social media. As a communications or fundraising professional, you probably spend a lot of time with creating copy and writing. So two tools that have made a real difference for me are CoSchedule's Headline Analyzer and Grammarly. So first, CoSchedule's Headline Analyzer gives you real insights into how clickable your headline is. You're not trying to write clickbait, but you don't want to write a headline that does include clear phrasing, action words, and has attributes that needs to get your audience's attention. Use this free tool and it'll show you what's good or bad about what you're writing. It's not perfect, but it does provide some rationale as to why your headline is catchy or not. And I've used it to some success with blog posts, but what I also find really useful about it is because I can test out headlines that I'm going to use in email campaigns and see if it thinks something is going to be catchy, and then I can use the testing capability in MailChimp to decide which one is better. So it gives me the top options of the 5 that I want to choose from, and then I can test 2 of them in MailChimp. Grammarly is the other tool I can't live without, and it's what's GIFing in front of you right now. You've probably seen ads for it before, but I actually have to say I'm really impressed. It is much more than just a spell check tool. If you rely on a spell checker in Google Docs or Word, it really takes it to the next level. Instead of looking for just simple spelling or punctuation mistakes, it looks at syntax and word choice. It can even make suggestions on entire sentences for clarity. It's not going to replace you as a writer, but it will save you bucket loads of time. It's especially invaluable for me as an editor because when I'm editing a blog post or an email or even social media, it can do that first pass for me to look for the things that would take me a little bit of time to catch, making sure the punctuation is correct, making sure that the tenses agree, things like that. And then I can really dive deep into the content. And when I'm setting up social media, it's the last set of eyes that I have on that tweet or that Facebook post to make sure that I didn't miss something when I go to post. There are free and paid options for the service again, and I believe there's a nonprofit discount. So it's definitely worth checking out Grammarly if you spend a lot of time writing. So I know we're coming up a little bit on time, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about this quickly. For big organizations managing a lot of photos and videos and things like that for their organization, they use what's called a DAM, a digital asset management system. And it's a really, really clunky service that allows you to upload a bunch of stuff, tag it, allow certain people to see it and certain people to download it. It provides version control. Think of it as like Google Drive on steroids. For most of us, it's not an option because those things are really, really expensive, right? So where things tend to live is in Google Drive or Dropbox or OneDrive. And that's really great, but it also fills up your inbox pretty quickly, right? Because you don't have unlimited storage in those places. So what I always suggest is when you're thinking about photos and graphics and where to store them, make your Google Drive the place where you select the 25 or 50 top photos or things that you're going to use consistently on all of your accounts that you own. They're the things that your organization commissioned, you purchased, they are yours. And put them in Drive and then point to them so people know where to find them. And that way they can be used on your website, they can be used on social media, they can be used on print mailings, etc. Absent that, if you use one of the many free stock photo services like Pexels, or if you're, I know we're going to talk about Canva later today. Canva has free stock photos as well, since it sources from a bunch of different places. It can be really tricky to keep all of those things together. So if you know that you've used one person using a computer before and you want to use that stock photo again, unless you save it, which you shouldn't have to because it's somewhere on the internet, it's going to be tough to find. So one trick to get around this is to use a private Pinterest board. You can set up that private board and then make the board say things like, somebody at a whiteboard, or people at a whiteboard, excuse me. So it's not just one picture, it's a bunch of pictures. People using computers, people in offices, whatever your thing is, make those private boards. That way you can pin the photos that work well for you, and you have a repository that you can go back to. Because as great as all those free services are, they often don't have really great tagging, and so it can be tough to find them again. So the next thing is resizing photos. When you're using photos for a website, you don't want to upload them in full quality. They're going to be huge, they're going to slow down your speed, so you want to resize them. And there's two ways to do this. Most of us have like the free tools that allow us to do it one at a time. I personally use Squish, which is the last bullet on this slide, which is squish.app, I think is the actual address. I'll have that at the end. And you can do one at a time resizing on the web. Super helpful if you have one or two photos that you need to resize. If you're resizing a bunch of photos all at once, like I frequently might be resizing 10 or 12 or more, I've created an iOS shortcut. So if you're using an iPhone or an iPad, you can use this shortcut, which I published on the blog because it's a little bit too much to describe right here. So I just took a screenshot of it. And then you can select a bunch of files, hit resize, and boom, they get saved to a folder for you to use on your computer later. So check out that shortcut link there. I've also saved it at the end, so you'll get that link. So if you don't copy it down now, we'll do it again. Email cultivation and automation. So some low-lift ways that can help you grow your email list that aren't illegal and don't require you to individually reach out to everybody is to automate your welcome series. Make sure that when you're using a tool like MailChimp, your welcome series is set up to offer 1, 2, or 3 emails that introduce somebody to who you are. And this isn't an immediate ask for a donation. It's just a presentation of what to expect from you. And if you're, again, using a service like MailChimp, you can set this up too. So if it's at sign up, or if it's maybe a weekend to sign up, or whatever it is, and then that gives you a sense of who's actually engaged in your content as you move them over into another list of things. You can also automate weekly emails. So you're probably sending a monthly newsletter. You can set up a weekly email that just grabs the latest couple of things from your blog posts off your website or something like that. You pick a very simple template. MailChimp or Vertical Response or whichever one you're using can automatically generate one that gets sent out on a weekly basis to the folks that want to hear from you on a weekly basis. Make sure that you're letting people opt in for those sorts of things. The last thing here, and I apologize I have to go so quickly, I know I'm coming up on time, but there will be more on this as well that I'll share with you. Create an easy sign-up page for your newsletter by using a short link or a QR code. We used to laugh at QR codes back 10 years ago, and they said they're going to be super popular and everywhere. Now they really are everywhere, and because all you need is a smartphone with a camera, they're really helpful for things like email signups. Give a presentation, put it on your collateral. You can put a QR code there by using a tool like Bitly, which is free, and that'll take somebody to a mobile optimized sign-up form for your email newsletter or for whatever you want. Makes it really, really simple. Next, we have Google Data Studio. If you're used to Google Analytics, this takes it up to the next level. It's much more beautiful, much more attractive, much easier to share with colleagues. So I highly recommend checking it out. It can be really daunting at first if you go to the site because you can do so much with it. It's a blank canvas and allows you to create widgets and text blocks and things like that. Thankfully, Google allows you to use their template gallery, and that provides compilations of different types of reports. So you can get a monthly marketing website report, which will automatically populate for you based on the date range. You're not pulling things all the time. You can get your YouTube channel metrics if you've connected them. They also have third-party integrations. So you can pull in Facebook or Twitter data if that's really important to you as well. This will take a huge bite at a time if you're constantly going to different services to pull specific numbers. Then somebody asks you a question and you have to go back and pull them again. The last thing I'm going to say before we just do the recap of the tools is to think and act asynchronously. Async comms is a concept that I borrowed from a team at Doist. They've been fully remote around the world, so they've been using a suite of tools that most of us use already to manage workflows across teams and time zones. And it's especially important now with so many of us working at home and away from our teams. So we have competing Zoom meetings, plenty of projects at different phases, work and life, move on. So one way you can save time is by making your meetings more actionable. Create an agenda up front that has specific points that you want to cover and the goal of the meeting. Make sure that you pick the people that need to be in the meeting very conscientiously so you know who needs to be there and who doesn't. And then as you sit down to the meeting, pull out the agenda, give it to everybody, and go point by point and make sure that you've answered each of those questions and walk away with specific action items. The other thing here is to record meetings when you can. Capture those meeting decisions and circulate that agenda, those meeting minutes on the back end. And if you're using Zoom, record meetings that can be recorded. Use it to record that 10-minute intro for new hires. Use it to record key takeaways and things like that. So if somebody can't make a meeting, they can catch up without having to actually be in the meeting. And as promised, this is the tools you can use slide, because I'm wrapping up. And apologies, Candace, I know I'm 1 minute over, so I apologize to everybody who had to run through the last few slides. But grab these tools. I've short linked them, so they're a little bit easier. And I don't know how you're distributing content later on, but we can make this available. If not, head over to gooddogstrategies.com and you can shoot me a note there. I'll also be publishing some of these as blog posts in the week to come.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jereme. That was so good. There's so many such helpful tips that even I'll implement some of them too. So really, really super helpful where, today we're all just trying to work from home, do our best to cram everything in our still packed schedules. And so this is really a lot of great tools that we can use to, streamline our work and help us get more done in less time. So thank you so much for your insight.